On November 15th, 1965, I arrived in Pune after spending 2.5 months on the road getting to India, ostensibly for Sahavas, a gathering that was supposed to be held at Christmas time. I arrived at the Pune center and went into the office where some Indian gentlemen were sitting, and they said, "Why are you here? What is the purpose of your visit?" And I said, "Oh, I've come for the Sahavas." And they sort of looked at me and said, "Oh, surely you're joking." I said, "No, I'm not joking." They said, "Oh, well, Baba canceled the Sahavas in September. This had been after I'd left the country and I didn't know anything about it." So they showed me a circular showing that Baba had indeed canceled the Sahavas. I was somewhat flabbergasted, to put it mildly, thinking that I've come 12,000 miles and you tell me there's no Sahavas? So I said, "Where's Baba?" He said, "Oh, Baba's in Meherzad, some 80 miles away, but he's not seeing anyone. He's in very strict seclusion." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful. I must try to see him." He said, "Oh yes, you should try." So the next morning I rose early and went to Ahmednagar and found Adi K. Irani's office. And Adi asked me, "What is the purpose of your visit?" And I told him the story. And he smiled and said, "Well, I don't think Baba will see you, but you should try." He said, "You look very tired and dusty. Why don't you go in and take chai and wash up, and we'll see what happens." So I went in and took chai and washed up and came out. I'm sitting in Adi's office and I look out his door, and my knapsack is being tied onto a motor scooter. And I said, "What's happening, Adi?" And he said, "Oh, well, you see, I sent a note to Meherzad, and they say you should come up, but I still don't think there's much chance of you seeing Baba. You should try." So we went up to Meherzad, some 9 miles away, and I expected literally absolutely nothing. If he didn't want to see me, his will, and if he did, again, his will. Whatever he wanted. We arrived in Meherzad. A bench was pointed out to me in the shade, fortunately, and a quiet, soft-spoken man, whom I later came to know as Erich, came and sat down next to me, and we talked for about 45 minutes, in which I told him once again the purpose of my visit. And he said that was very interesting, and I should sit there and have a glass of water, and he would come back shortly. A few minutes later, he came back with a big smile on his face and said, "That's some wonderful news. Baba will see you in the morning. You'll stay here tonight and sleep in the blue bus, and just take it easy." So I said, "Wonderful." So we went and sat down in Erich's cabin, and with some of the mandali, and they were asking me, "How did you hear of Baba?" So I started to tell the story of how I heard of Baba, and I mentioned a certain friend in America whom I'd heard of Baba from, and they said, "Oh yes, we just received a letter from him recently." And we received the letter. Erich went and got the letter, and he said, this boy writes that here he is taking this stuff called LSD, and he's on the 6th plane, and isn't it wonderful, and how does it fit into the spiritual panorama? And I said, "Oh." And they said, "You've taken this LSD stuff, is it?" And I said, "Yes." I could see the great karmic snowball about to engulf me. And in fact, I had some LSD with me in my knapsack, which I was planning to take in Nepal on New Year's, which never happened. And they said, "Well, what is it like?" So I gave them, as it were, a capsule history of a trip. I told them that my friends in America call them reality capsules, which cracked them up. I said, only in the West. These people have been with Baba for 40 years, and in the West we discovered a pill. So they said, "Are many young people taking this?" And I said, "Yes." And we went on like that. And Erich had slipped out of the room and came back and said, "Baba wants to know if you want to see him now." As if I were going to say, "Well, no, I think I'll wait till tomorrow. It's okay, Erich." But in fact, I said, "Yes, I think it would be wonderful." And so we went around the men's quarters to where Baba's room was. And there was Baba sitting on his bed, naked from the waist up. There were a couple of other people in the room, as I recall. It's always difficult at this point which I say every time I get to this point, to describe what it was like to see Baba for the first time. I'm not given to visions and hallucinations, other than, of course, thinking that all this is real. But what I saw when I looked at Baba was just his face beaming such incredible effulgent light radiating from his face at the center that tears came to my eyes, and I don't think I had cried since I was a child. It was just this incredible light streaming from him, and his face just beaming, and he made some gestures that he was happy to see me, and I said, to see me? And that I looked tired and dusty, and I should take a hot bath. I should read a portion of God Speaks that afternoon, a particular section, and I should have a good meal and a good night's sleep, and he would see me in the morning. And I sort of nodded dumbly, and Eric turned me around and led me off. And as per Baba's instructions, I took a hot bath, read that part of God Speaks that he wished me to, had a good meal with the Mandali, and then went to sleep in the blue bus. Had a very good night's sleep. Early the next morning, Eric awoke me. We had some breakfast, washed up, and went into Mandali Hall where Baba would meet with the Mandali in the morning. I was sat down across from Baba's chair, and for some reason, still unknown to me to this day, Eric brought in my knapsack and placed it next to me. I looked at the opposite end of Mandali Hall towards the women's side. Baba came in. I rose. Baba sort of smiled and waved at me to sit down. I looked at the opposite end of Mandali Hall towards the women's side. Baba came in. I rose. Baba sort of smiled and waved at me to sit down. He did a walk the length of the room 3 times, which he said was his exercise. He came and sat down in his armchair and looked at me and made a gesture that I didn't need Eric to interpret at all. It was a gesture to embrace him. I went over and across the distance to myself, knelt down and touched his feet, and then hugged him, and he hugged me, and we kissed each other, and I went backwards and sat down, and Baba began, as it were, speaking, but of course he doesn't speak. He said that he was in very strict seclusion, he wasn't seeing anyone, but I was very fortunate to be there. One of the first things that Baba said was, go back, because what you're looking for you won't find wandering around India or sitting in a monastery in the Himalayas, which are, of course, the 2 exact ideas I had, which I haven't voiced. But you will find it in society with people by trying to be of service to them and loving them. He made such absolute common sense, as it were, that indeed 3 weeks later I left India and went back to the United States. Baba asked what I'd been doing in the United States before I came to India, and I told him that I'd been working in a mental hospital, at which point Baba just lit up. It was very good working with the MAD. I should go back and work in the hospital when I got back, and he would work through me with the patients. Which, when I returned to the United States, I did go back and work on the ward. Baba said that the experiences generated by drugs were nothing into nothing, that many people in India smoke hashish and ganja, and it produces visions and colored lights and hallucinations and an illusion of their problems temporarily. They come down and simply have to face what was there before. All it is sort of a moratorium, hiatus, which is temporary and illusory. That if God could be found in a pill, then God would not be worthy of being God. That LSD was especially dangerous, not because it was addicting in itself, but because the experiences generated by it were addicting. That it was delusion within illusion, and that it was harmful mentally, physically, and spiritually. I'd heard before many stories that LSD was harmful mentally and physically, but never that it was harmful spiritually. And this to me was a great deciding factor. Baba asked me if there was anything I wanted to know. I said, no, Baba, nothing I want to know. Knowing indeed that anything I want to know would be from my head and not from my heart. He said, you've had enough of words. He said, now it is time to learn the language of the heart. And he asked me if there was anything I wanted from my heart. He said, you've had enough of words. He said, now it is time to learn the language of the heart. And he asked me if there's anything I wanted. And I said, yes, Baba, there is something I want. He smiled and said, come on, tell me. I said, I want to see you as you really are. I want to see you in everyone and everything and love you as you should be loved. And Baba smiled and said that was a very good response, and that he would help me, that one day I would see him as he really is. Alas, I wasn't sharp enough at the time to ask him when. Like, Baba, this lifetime? But, next time maybe. He said that there were 3 types of conviction. There was intellectual conviction, which could be brought about by reading God Speaks. That there was conviction by sight, in other words, sixth plane, when one sees God everywhere and everything, face to face, but there's still the feeling of separation. And the third and highest type of conviction is union, when one knows God, one knows oneself as God. Baba again said that he was very happy to see me. I was blessed to be there, and ended the darshan with, I am God in human form, my word is truth. My feelings of being with Baba at this time lasted about a half an hour, was an aura of total peace emanating from him, a peace that I had never glimpsed, the closest thing that I could possibly imagine as to when it's said in the New Testament of the peace that passeth all understanding. I still don't understand it. It can't be understood. There was no room for games or pretensions or masks. It was just a feeling of being alone with myself, of total acceptance for me as I am, both the positive and negative aspects, and just this incredible radiating dynamic love that was not simply fixed at that particular time and place, but something that continues and that grows and that is with me even now as I speak. A feeling of an increasing joy and the ability to know that he is here, now, always. And is the strength that keeps one going from day to day.